Hi, and welcome all to this wonderful session, Unleash Yourself, the series that focuses on widening your thoughts and adding new perspectives from the luminaries that we have in our on this our platform, so that we can learn from there, grow more and more, and unleash ourselves. So today we have Diana Larsen, and she's a leader, one of our agile gurus, author, keynote speaker, and the list is endless. And the best part is that, what people mostly talk about her is she sees opportunities where people see or perceive obstacles. So, and this is what our theme is today in our Unleash Yourself series. So, before we start, I would also would like to share that we'll be sharing recording with all of you, and we'll be having question answer session right after the talk. And now over to you, Deepti.
No, I think, it's an absolutely beautiful, great introduction, Charu. Thank you so much. And so, Diana, as you know, we are working on Agile community development with Agile Alliance. This is one of our efforts in the same direction. And there is this community of awesome women. Charu is one of them. Sumiti is another. Sumiti and Charu are two awesome leaders who are putting together this effort. And I truly feel proud to be part of it. Together, this group is called Women in Agile and Tech. If you can see, Rakhi is also there. She's another vet officer. And so yeah, this Unleash Yourself is brought to you all by Women in Agile and Tech in association with Agile Virgin, which is the local community of practices, and Agile Alliance. And thanks a lot, Diana. Thanks a lot for joining us. Over to you.
Oh, thank you. I'll get myself all set up here. So I want to do, play. That's what we want to do. I'm going to play this and play that. Hi, my name's Diana Larsen, and I've experienced personal change, fear, and finding a path forward since I was born. You probably have too. In my career life, I've coached teams and organizations facing those same dynamics. For the past 2 decades, my professional path has taken me alongside the Agile software movement and the colleagues and practitioners that I've met there. I can usually be found working in the spaces between where we've been and where we think we'd like to go. Over time, whether regarding our personal lives, our professional practices, or our organizational processes, I've noticed that when we experience confusing and chaotic situations, we tend to fill in the unknown, uncertain future with our worst fears. And then we often make long-term plans with that too limited view in mind. It's a human thing. In recent months, the usual work-related questions about change and paths forward have been complicated by a global pandemic. So while physical distancing and working from home I've been preoccupied with how these turbulent times affect my colleagues, clients, and community, as well as experiencing my own response to the pandemic. I've always been a connector in the Malcolm Gladwell tipping point sense, someone who provides the social glue in my teams and in my communities, someone who shares and spreads ideas. So when the recommendations for staying safe and well came along, I was stunned at first, busy figuring out how to pull together the things I needed from the office to create a workspace at home, changing my in-person events on my calendar to remote calls, watering the office plants, canceling, they've all died now, canceling travel plans. After I got through the busyness and had time to think, the realization hit me. Oh no, my work is about connection. It's based on interacting and relating with people at client sites, conferences, user groups, and workshops. In the face of not knowing, the fear rushed in. Is this the end of my work? And I'm not ready for that. I was scared and I was concerned about what might be in store, and that I didn't know so many things about the looming crisis or how it would play out and how it would affect my world. But it made me think back to the other times of big change I'd been through and what I had learned then. So let's pause there and take a look at what we know, what we've learned about change and fear. Let's consider what many of us know about change. This will be a quick overview of 3 models. You may be familiar with others as well. You may be familiar with some of these. Also, it's important to note that when we talk about fear in the context of change, we're thinking about a certain aspect of fear. The fear of the unknown, uncertainty, of loss of the familiar. And we'll talk more about this later. There's more to study to understand any of these or other change models. So we'll just do a quick overview. This first model is the Satir change model. And in it, we see a pattern of typical responses to the foreign element that enters our system, a virus coming into our daily lives. Family systems were the focus of Virginia Satir's work. She described a pattern she saw repeated as her clients experienced change. First, they would be in their normal state, then the foreign element, and which is awareness of change, comes in. Then there would be this chaotic response, including fearfulness. And eventually a transforming idea, some idea about our way through the change. And then integrating and practicing living with that transforming idea and those behaviors, by which we create a new status quo, a new normal. It looks pretty smooth. It doesn't really play out that way. William Bridges offered his Bridges transition model, a variation on how we experience change. He said that the change event itself, the moment we become aware that the change actually has arrived, that we get the announcements, the reality checks, whatever, it was the beginning of the transition, the equivalent of Satir's foreign element. So after that change event occurs, we enter a time of endings, and we all do it differently. And after the ending period comes a neutral zone, which Bridges characterized in a biblical metaphor as a bit like wandering 40 years in the wilderness with Moses and crew, before finding the new beginnings into the promised land. So we go through these 3 phases. He said transition is the inner psychological process that people go through as they internalize and come to terms with the new situation that the change brings about. The neutral zone holds space for possibilities, creativity, and innovative ideas to arise and gain strength. The third model I want to share is Ken Moses, who created a model of the 6 stages of grief, which is a response to a kind of change. In my view, his model describes in more detail Bridges' ending and neutral zone phases and Satir's chaotic disequilibrium. Dr. Moses suggested a nonlinear journey through and among 6 states: shock, anxiety, fear, depression, pain and guilt, and anger, before we can arrive at the shift to acceptance and acknowledgement, and finally hope. He noted that some who are grieving stay a long while on the journey. I relied on one particular image learned from Ken Moses. He suggested that it's as if we all walk around in a bubble of our assumptions about the future. We have ideas about next year's vacation and our promotional paths and how we'll build our businesses and how our new relationships are going to go and planning how we're going to do something different in next year's garden. When big change finds us in the form of a sudden loss or crisis, it bursts that bubble of our idea of the future. Our sense of the future just shatters like a bubble bursting. Our next steps are all about rebuilding that bubble. The more entrenched our ideas were about what the future should be rather than what the future could be, the more challenged we are about rebuilding it. Resilience comes in part from our readiness to shift our ideas and assumptions about normal. I've developed a related idea about change, the likelihood that we'll feel fear and possibly respond with resilience. It has to do with how much simultaneous or successive change we can handle. I visualize myself and others as having an invisible internal change bucket. Mine sits about right here. As long as the amount of or degree of change we are experiencing is less than what our bucket will hold, we're fine. However, if the changes we encounter are greater than our buckets can hold and they start pouring over, we fall into chaos, disequilibrium with its anxiety, fear, depression, and our inability to cope with anything more. In my imagination, some of us carry around quite large buckets and can accommodate quite a lot of change before being knocked off balance by it. Others have buckets that are smaller and can be disturbed by less. I have a pretty big change bucket, but if we had more time, I could tell stories of when my own bucket has overflowed and how I reacted. And I think I've come very close during these most recent times. In my work, I engage mostly with small group systems like teams or large group systems like divisions or organizations. I've studied them through the lens of complex adaptive human systems. I've found teams and organizations have change buckets too, and how much change they can take on has to fit in their bucket. So what I'd like to do now is do a quick poll and look at what are the different kinds of changes that the people who are attending this session are experiencing. So one of the deep Ds, the two of you are deep D here.
So yeah,
can you set that up?
Yeah, I'll launch the poll.
Yeah. So reflecting on your experience, can everyone see the poll? Yeah, okay. So reflecting on your experience during the pandemic, say since, February till now or so, which kinds of fear or anxiety have arisen for you? And, choose all that apply for you. Many of us are experiencing more than one kind. And if you have a sticky note handy or some small piece of paper, when you finished your poll, just put a sticky note over your camera so we can see who's finished and who still needs to go. Okay. Looks like we've got everybody. Okay, you want to show us the outcome?
Yes, I want to see.
Yeah. I'm really curious.
Can you show it, Charu?
Yeah. This. Oh,
Did it pop up?
yeah.
I'm not able to see it.
Yes.
Do I need to stop sharing maybe?
I think it should be visible now, is it?
You
It's
stopped your sharing, Charu. It was there. Now
Okay.
it's gone. And your YouTube came in between, so I think you freaked out.
we need to.
Is it visible now?
No, only your YouTube is visible. And
Because I shared my whole desktop. Just
it was
Okay.
there, I don't know. It was there the first time when you shared, and then I think when you shared your screen, it went away, I guess. And what you
Ah,
actually do is you can take a screenshot and then share. It was there the first time when you shared. But the
okay.
moment you shared your screen, I think it has gone away.
yeah.
Can you still see the result from the poll, Charu?
Yeah, I can. I can. Just
Awesome. So
Okay,
just
good. Yeah,
snip,
you can share that with us.
snip. Yeah, snip tool.
Yeah. So when we see the results, one of the things we'll see is that, there's a wide variation in the kinds of change that people are experiencing. Some similarities for some of us, and then others it's very different. But almost all of us are experiencing some kind of change or insecurity or something due to this pandemic. And so, that's a piece of what we have to figure out how to deal with.
Charu, are you showing it? Taking snip and showing it?
yeah.
There we go. There it is. Yay. Yeah. So a lot of folks are feeling, fear and anxiety around their jobs, and some of that is related to the income insecurity that we're feeling as well. Quite a few people are having family and friendship concerns. When we're needing to social distance, it makes things so much more difficult. Myself, I am fortunate in that I live in a intergenerational household with a couple of my grandchildren, but another grandchild who just lives across my city, I've hardly seen at all since this has happened. And so family and friendship concerns can really be going on. Um, People are afraid for their health, absolutely. So, and some people are feeling other kinds of change. So that's an interesting range of what's going on with us here. And whether or not that's overflowing our change buckets is a thing we need to sort of pay attention to. So thank you. I'll start sharing my screen again now. So as we move forward, we need to think about change, as professionals. So from Glenda Oyang and the Human Systems Dynamics Institute, I learned to recognize 3 kinds of system change: static, dynamic, and dynamical. I like this pool balls on a table image that is shared from the Human Systems Dynamics website. Static change is directed, familiar, single stage action, a simple movement from point A to point B. This to that, here to there. Check this box. Move the ball from the middle of the table straight into the pocket. Easy to add to my change bucket. One and done. Dynamic change has multiple steps that can be foreseen on a larger scale, like a bank shot in pool, a medical diagnosis leading to a treatment plan, leadership development programs that turn high potentials into senior managers by giving a sequence of experiences. These kinds of change take up more room in our change buckets. On the other hand, dynamical change is unpredictable. All the ball's trajectories in a break. A mourner's journey through Moses' 6 stages, unpredictable. The course of a friendship. Understanding how to reopen an economy in a pandemic. These kinds of change require more room in the bucket and more attention and effort in the organization to accomplish. The fear, anxiety, confusion, even grief that we feel when confronted with radical shifts in how we understand our surroundings is related to another pertinent idea that emerged in the Marshall and organizational terms, VUCA: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. It's an acronym that was developed at the U.S. Army War College. And VUCA was originally meant to describe the fast-moving and changeable conditions that squads of soldiers might encounter when they go out into the field. Conditions that couldn't be predicted or even imagined by the leaders and planners back at field headquarters. In a January Harvard Business Review article, Nathan Bennett and G. James Lemoine linked those same dynamics to the swiftly changing economic and business marketplace. The ideas from VUCA hit home, and a consulting industry has sprung up to explain what it is, how to lead it, how organizations confront it, et cetera, et cetera. So when we unpack it, it means basically very scary times. Volatile, things are ready to explode, unpredictably changeable, uncertain, difficult to predict, insecure, precarious, confusing, complex. The least scary of all just involves intricate, difficult to understand, tangled interrelationships, and ambiguous, unclear, many possible meanings, enigmatic, puzzling. Not much there to embrace willingly. Is it surprising then that when we face the change that we can't immediately make sense of, we turn to our worst fears about the situation? And then we let our fears limit our imaginations in a vicious cycle, as in my story. Oh no, will my livelihood evaporate? Will I have no purpose? Will I have to rethink all my assumptions and routines? Will we have to stay in this socially, physically disconnected state forever? Will I never again hug my grandchildren? Right? So let's take a moment and do poll number 2. So I'm just going to stop my sharing here because I think that maybe that will, come on, where's my, all right, I have to do this before I can see my cursor. So let's do poll number 2. I'm going to get out of, this is weird. Okay. All right. So how would you change with the different kinds of change in mind and the VUCA world that we're in? How would you rate your change bucket? How do you typically respond to change? There's just five choices here. So and again, when you finish the poll and submit, please put a sticky note over your camera so we can tell. I think the fourth one down is supposed to read change is uncomfortable to me. I like certainty and stability. There's a little typo. It takes a little self-reflection. Think about other times when you've been through change. When you voted, put a sticky note over your camera. For those of you who aren't on the video, the choices are, so you can just think about it since you might not be able to see the poll. I seek change. My bucket is quite large. I can accommodate much more simultaneous change than most people or other people. Most change doesn't throw me. I can accommodate several simultaneous changes, more than most, not as much as others. Change happens and I deal with it, but I don't seek it. My bucket is medium size. Change is comfortable to me. I like certainty and stability. I don't like unexpected surprises, particularly not multiple changes at the same time. And then finally, when one important thing changes in my life, I need quite a while to adjust to it. I am more uncomfortable with change than most of my colleagues and friends. So just reflect on that for yourself. Okay, let's see if everyone has voted, let's see the poll results.
Yeah, so is my screen visible now to everyone? Because I have, is it? Could someone please confirm?
Somehow it is blocking my ability to do anything with my screen. So I think somebody's going to have to stop my sharing so that I can restart it. Oh, there we go. Is that, no, that just changed the slide. Did you see the slide change?
You can actually do that. I just shared my screen. Could you, and I could share my screen. Yeah.
I need somebody to stop. My screen has frozen. I can't do, there it goes. All right. There's something happened that made a difference. Okay, there we go. So let's see the outcome of the second poll.
This is first one.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, we can see.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. can, oh, so no one is at the bottom. So that's good news. I mean, you all have some, you've all had some experience dealing with change. Yeah, and most folks, you know, they'd rather have stability, and they like it that way. But multiple changes at the same time, you know, that becomes more difficult. Yeah, it says something about it. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my screen share. And okay, all right. So my reaction to the early days of the pandemic was up in the air. And that's when the light bulb moment happened for me. My own transforming idea in the satir model, my step into the neutral zone, my acceptance, acknowledgement, and new hope in Ken Moses. I know this. I've seen these patterns before. I know at least some things that have worked and that I can try again. I decided I could do these things for myself, and I could offer these connections to my clients and colleagues as well. So my way of doing this is feel the fear, name the fear, identify it. What kind of fear is this? Is it an unknown? Is it a physical and emotional threat? I need to assess it and remember previous experiences and plans that I've had. And then cautiously, watchfully, testing each step of the way, walk toward the fear, walk through it. Okay, there's a virus. My health is at risk. My livelihood may be at risk. It's a reasonable fear. Then I get curious. Well, what precautions are needed? What's most likely to happen? How bad would that be? Can I mitigate it? Can I find a new opportunity in it? What else can I try? What do I need to learn in this new way of life? I ask a lot of questions. And then I reframe it. I'm not being trapped at home. I'm not a prisoner, socially distanced and disconnected. I'm a warrior exiling myself for the greater good of the realm. I found that on Twitter. I thought that was funny. Humor helps too. So then I noticed the new possibilities. We can make masks. I can make them accessories that I wear with my outfits. People know how to run amazing online meetings, webinars, and workshops. I can learn from them. New tools bring new ways of working. I can explore those. Oh, an invitation to speak at some new kind of conference? I'm in. So I want to give you an opportunity to reflect on some journal questions. And so since this is being recorded, you'll be able to come back and pick these up later. But if you want to take a quick screenshot of this, I'll leave it up here for just a second. These are things that are useful to think about when you're trying to figure out your own style of moving through the fear. What self-awareness, self-management techniques have you relied on when you've encountered change, anxiety, or fear? How might you translate that to the upcoming conditions in this turbulent environment? Then how can you use that you know about yourself to help teams and clients navigate change? One thing I've learned in my long career, for sure, is that when change comes along, doesn't matter if you call yourself a change agent or have been through a lot of change, no one is immune. We all experience these things. So it's nothing to be embarrassed about or worried about. We all have these kinds of changes. So waving at people on the screen. So, so these are some good journaling questions. When you get a chance, I suggest that you just take a moment for yourself and respond. So when I ask myself, what do I want to have happen? How can I influence the future? To me, that means it's time for soaring. SOAR is an alternative to a SWOT analysis that was born from, SOAR is born from the appreciative inquiry community. And by the way, if appreciative inquiry as an approach to coaching and process consulting emerged in the 1980s, and throughout the 1990s, it's alive and well today. It's a wonderful way to think about building on the sparks of positive energy already present in an organization or in a situation. It begins with questioning. And then the change begins when you ask the first question. You begin to think about the world differently. Learning happens in the direction of our questions. Appreciative inquiry is amazing, and I recommend that you check it out. But back to SOAR. The SOAR acronym stands for strengths, what can we build on? Opportunities, what are our stakeholders asking us for? Aspirations, what do we care deeply about? And results. How do we know when we succeed? I rely on the Agile Fluency model as a resource for making sense of the opportunities, aspirations, and desired outcomes my clients seek. The wonderful thing I've discovered about creating models is you get them to a state where they are ready to be seen by others, and you publish them out into the world. I've done this several times. And then the models begin teaching you back. Practitioners pick up on your model and make it their own. And if you're very lucky, they share what they've learned back with you. I appreciate that so much. So I want to share a little bit about this model that I use. I'm going to go through this very fast. At the end, there is an offer. If you want to learn more about this, you can get more information at the agilefluency.org website. But what am I going on here? This has stopped. Why has this stopped? Okay, there we go. So this model starts with the idea of pre-Agile, which is people who have not yet decided to go Agile. And for a lot of folks, that works. We haven't put a lot of energy into describing that because that's not what we're interested in, my partner, James Shore, and I. But but pre-Agile is where it starts. And then it shifts from pre-Agile to focusing. And focusing is a shift in team culture, and it relies on an investment in the certain investments that the organization needs to make, and it can take a little while to get there. So then if focusing isn't the right thing for your organization, then we look at, well, maybe the delivering zone is the right kind of thing for your teams, and we do another shift. And this one is more about professional skills, engineering skills for software, and so on. And it has to do with how do we capture value most frequently? How do we see what are the things that are in the way to us as rapidly as possible so that we can deal with them? And that requires a little bit different kinds of investments, the training and the professional skills. You may need to have a broader range of folks in a cross-functional team, and so on. Delivering isn't good for everybody, and so some organizations that need to be more disruptive, create innovative products, have very fast decision making, they are in an optimizing zone. And so that requires an organizational structure shift and some different kinds of investments on behalf of the organization. And then the last zone is we call strengthening zone, and this is usually very small organizations that involve everyone, all their teams, everyone in, and so teams are involved in decisions that affect the whole organization. And that involves inventing new practices that fit that organization's model, and then maybe sharing them back out in the world. and a cross-organization focus on behalf of the team. So that was just a very quick way through. If you'd like a copy of this whole graphic here, you can write to the bonus material contact information at the bottom of the screen, and we will send you, just request, say that you want to get the graphic, and we'll send you the graphic. Also, if you, while you're visiting our website to do that, you can look for a free downloadable ebook that describes this model and how it works in a lot more detail, if that's a thing that you're interested in, if you'd like to go further with that. This is I share it with you because this is a tool that I use a lot in my work, and I found it very helpful in helping organizations move through their change, and now maybe layered on top of this pandemic, but the change that they need to make when they're shifting to a more agile way of working, and really finding the agile that is best fit for them. So let's do another journal reflection here. How will you help your clients move through change, fear, and limits? I shared the Agile Fluency and the SOAR models with you. Those are two things that I use. You may have other tools that are particularly helpful to you. Think about those in advance. And oftentimes, if you can partner up with someone to sort of work through these questions, that can be helpful too. What strategies have worked well for you in the past? Beware of best practices. Those are good practices. They may not fit the future, but looking at what has helped you in the past, you can then think about how might we adapt or adjust those practices, or how would we need to do something completely different to meet our future challenges? And then what investments will you recommend? What investments, professional development investments, will you make in yourself? What investments will you recommend to your clients? So all of those things are important to think about, and would be another good reflection for you to do maybe after this talk or tomorrow. Right.
Diana, before we
Yeah.
proceed further, we are
Yeah.
left with 15 minutes. 15
Right.
minutes.
I've got 2 more slides. Then we'll go to questions. Yeah. So I found a few steps on the path forward for me to living in a world that has a new virulent crisis in it, and I can't see around the corners. Perhaps you can see further than I am for your future, but it's blocked. But I know there's a path, and my experience tells me that I can count on humans to act in human-like ways, and that many of the resources and techniques I've learned can be helpful to others. That's satisfying enough for me for now. And there's so much more to learn, and that's very exciting. So thank you, and best wishes for navigating these turbulent times. And please visit us at agilefluency.org, either to request the graphic or download our free ebook or read things on our blog. We'd love to be in touch with you. You can join a Google group conversation that we have. And I look forward to seeing you all more in the future. Oops. Right, there we go. So let's see what kind of questions that we have. And if you've got a question, please just write it in the chat, or maybe we're a small enough group that you can just call it out. Raise your hand and call it out so we're not talking over each other. And I'll answer as many as I can in the time we have left. I left you all stunned. Deepti.
You won't believe. So in the ACC also, I've been jumping here and there, but I was always keen about how fluency works. And so I was going through so after that, the very next day I sat down and I went through the entire video that you and your partner has. I looked for it. And
Mm-hmm.
the very first question that came to my mind was, uh, when you move towards the later stages wherein you intend to achieve business agility, it requires a lot of time. So, like, how do you enroll leadership? When they start conversation, they must be very excited, but they
Yeah.
might not have so much patience. They come to the bottom part. How
Right.
from your survey? So, how do you
Yeah.
ensure that they stay enrolled, and how do you ensure that they reach to that stage? Of course, it is not our job to enforce something, but we know that they'll be benefited, and we crave
Right.
to offer them. So, how do you go about it?
Okay. So that's actually one of the things we teach in our workshop. And so we go over this a lot. And just in short, what we do is we first align with those leaders, and they are the ones that choose the zone that they want for each team. They think through their process, and they know, like particularly in the optimizing zone, it's going to take them, very few companies want strengthening zone, so we're not going to worry about that. But if they want the optimizing zone, they know they're not going to get the full benefit of that until they make all the changes they need to make, and the teams have had an opportunity to develop fluency in that. And they know that's going to be a long journey, but they also know that they will begin to get some of the benefits from that sooner. And so they make the choice about, do they feel like that's an investment that they're willing to make, or would they prefer to, you know, manage their expectations and only think about things that a delivering zone team could deliver. So they are the ones that make that choice. We never do that for them. We have conversations with them, we explain to them, we share the model with them, we share the article, but they are the ones who choose. And then they are the ones who choose to do an assessment of their current teams, either our diagnostic or some other assessment of their current teams, to see where they are now. And then we work with them to create an investment plan. And so then when the coaches, and this is coaches engaged in doing this, so then the coaches start implementing the investment plan, and when they've gotten a certain way and they need to do some more things, they come back to those leaders and they can say, here's the progress we've made. Are you still signed? Is this still what you want? And if it is, then these are the next things we need to do. So the leaders are engaged all the way through the process. And I mean, not on a daily basis, but on a very rapid feedback basis. And so they are in making the choices all the way along. And that makes a real difference, as opposed to coming in with a set program. Here's what you just have to buy this whole package. This is what we're going to do. Well, then you get pushback against that because you haven't really enlisted the folks who need to do the work in figuring out what the work should be.
Got it. Yeah. Because that without that it's not possible. And that is what I was
Yeah.
trying to understand. What is your strategy for that? Perfect.
Yeah, yeah. We have a bunch of tools and techniques that we teach for doing that with the Out to Fluency model in particular. But you can do that no matter what kind of change you're doing. You can take that approach. Yeah.
And so then another question is, as we speak of agility, and we talk about, no, it's not just into IT and software. Yeah, we understand businesses are enabled by IT today. So have we also used fluency for non-IT and software organization, or right now we are focusing only on, IT and software organization?
I focus only on IT and software organizations because that's the people I love to work with. But other people who are practicing using our model aren't. They're more broadly business agility coaches or those kinds of things. The model, when you read the article, you see the model the article very much describes specifics around software teams, but I have found it to be easily translatable. focusing teams are very similar to any kind of team that you pull together, any kind of cross-functional team. You just need to make the professionalism translations.
Yeah.
So particularly, and the one, actually focusing teams and optimizing teams, because there's such a focus on or an attention given to creating cross-functional teams and what those need to look like, mostly in those, um, that they're pretty translatable. The most difficult one is the delivering zone teams. And what we've done there is we work with people to identify what are the professional skills that people will need to do rapid delivery. Is rapid delivery the thing that they need the most? What, you know, we work through that, and then we identify for them their own description of that zone in the model. And that has worked pretty well. Yeah.
Got it. And I think I am the one who is constantly asking questions. So I will pause here. In case there is a question, I have two more questions, but I'll first give people opportunity.
Yeah.
I think Rupesh has question because I can see his hand is raised.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. This has been a great session. Sure, sorry I have to keep my camera off due to certain situations.
Sure.
So my basic
Good.
question is very simple. There can be people who are, very vibrant in nature. There can be people who are pretty, looking very susceptible to depressions. How to enthuse on a common goal, on a common foray, the soul search? Because I see, if you are in a rat race which we were in, we have come into a laid back situation, but
Yeah.
still people are not going into the soul search mode. How
Right.
can we have a kind of a model to make everyone just exasperate or come up to the soul searching of themselves? I think lots
Yeah.
of things can change. What do you say that about that?
Well, you know, it was a toss up when I created this talk, and I've given it several times now. I think this is the best one I've given, by the way. But I've given this talk a few times, and I keep changing it. But it was a toss up about which things about change to include, because I've been working in this change management area arena for my whole career. So I've dipped into a lot of things. So another one that I didn't include in the talk, but that I think is very useful, and I think Esther has incorporated it also in her 7 Rules for Change book, but she and I had been talking about it for years and years, is a change I learned, a model I learned very early on, that when people are in change, the help they need isn't SOS, it's SIS. And in this case, SIS stands for support, information, and structure. And that when people are going through change, and you know, people who are having a difficult time with it, as you were describing, odds are they need to help in managing those VUCA things. So what additional support do they need? And so we think about what kinds of support can we offer our folks, and make that available. Can we set up small group discussions? Can we set up, I mean, I'm shocked at the number of organizations I keep running into that have asked people to do all remote work and don't give them cameras so they can see their team members. All they can see is the screen of the system view of the screen of the programming that they're doing, but they can't see each other. That's not supportive, right? That teams need those interconnections. So we need to give them as many opportunities to do that as possible. And so I go to the teams and I ask them, you know, what is it you need to do this? So and they may need you know, other kinds of support, counseling support, or other kinds of things. So I make sure that people know those things are available. They have support. They have support around, has this disrupted my career process, you know, anything that is concerning to them. And then they also want information. And what the interesting thing about information is, it's what I think leaders in organizations often forget is that people assume leaders know a lot more than they know. So they even need to be transparent about, here are the things that we figured out. Here are the things we've learned about how we're going to go forward in these times. Here are the things we haven't figured out yet. And here's the timeline that we hope to have those figured out. And here's when we'll get back to you about these things. But we really don't have answers in these areas. That's good information. And people often forget to do that part, or to share, to be transparent and share as much as they possibly can with everybody. And that can help people get over that feeling of being out in the uncertain world all alone. Things are so ambiguous and puzzling, and it's just depressing. So that can help. And then the last one is structure. We don't know what our organizations are going to look like. But what we can do is create interim structures. We can say, well, we don't have the same structure we had last February, but here, be very clear about what the structure is now and how we are doing these things now. And those are three areas that I think often don't get attended to, that do help people kind of find their way through. Now, if people are are having a mental health crisis or something like that, then I would look to my local services that know how to help folks with that, and make sure that you've given information about all the ways in which people can reach out and do better. And even I think organizations need to help their employees that are at home and isolated, give them ways to help connect to their families and friends, because whole people come to work, and we can't expect that we're just going to get a worker, and that they are going to be disconnected from the rest of their world, right? So the more we can support people, give them the information they need, give them the structures that they need to kind of help them move through this time, the more likely folks who are really struggling will find the help they need. And we can't be fully responsible for that. We can only do what we can do. And that's, that's the sad.
There is a small related question, like in these
Sure.
tough times, how does we can use it only as a silver lining, I guess, but you know how does and at what quantity or quality can we use some kind of a humor, like you stated in your sentence, because that is not really an awareness which the corporate culture, at least in India,
Yeah.
believes in.
Right. Yeah.
So how we should
Humor and play. Humor
and
and
play.
playfulness.
They have only one
Absolutely.
word, work no play makes the jack
Yeah.
up. You know,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, those things are very, very important at these times. And sometimes it's kind of gallows humor, you know, but we do need to do that. And I heard the other day about a team that on round robin, every one of their work sessions, or when they get together for the day, or this was a team that was like on a special project, so they weren't doing daily work, but they were meeting together on a different kind of cadence, on a round robin of the different people on the team. Everybody had, each person for a meeting had to bring the introductory joke to the meeting. And the person who was telling me this said, she'd heard some pretty good jokes because people went out and they looked for one, and of course they have to be safe for work jokes and all those kinds of things. But she said the funniest day was the person who came and said, I just couldn't find a joke. I looked everywhere. I just couldn't find a joke. And everybody just cracked up, right? So even, those looking for those opportunities, looking for ways to inject some humor in your retrospectives, doing retrospectives more often, and just inserting humor into those can all be good ways of bringing it in. And one of the things we know about software development and IT in particular is that it is a learning It's learning work. We are learning all the time. And one of the things we know about learning is humans learn best through play. We see it in children, and it's still true as adults. It's why people like games. It's why, you know, these are, I mean, I'm really sad right now because we can't bring our Agile Fluency game to organizations because it's an in-person, hands-on kind of game. But, you know, those are the play is a lot of how we learn. And organizations that shut people off from playfulness are shutting off the learning that they need for good productivity and high performance. So I think people shut down, you know, say we have to be serious all the time at their peril because it is going to keep them from being as successful as they can be. Yeah. How much time do we still have time for another question?
So we are almost done because we started 10 minutes late. So time
Okay.
is over. So maybe we
Okay.
can utilize this slot while the meeting
Yeah.
ends on its
Yeah.
own. Yeah. So
Okay. Go ahead.
yeah, I also have a question. When we are talking about learning or reaping benefits, maybe it start with smaller benefits. But
Mm-hmm.
what is your strategy? You know, when there are failures, what else you do apart from constant counseling and conversations? Because leaders, they might not, you know, support because when they see failures. So
Right.
what is your strategy in that case when we are encountering failures, and it could be probably multiple failures as well? So what is the
Right.
sustainability that you try to, you know, prevail?
Well, when I encounter failures, the things that people are calling failures, I always think in terms of the retrospective prime directive, which is during a retrospective, we understand and we truly believe that no matter what we discover, everyone was doing their best, given their skills and abilities, the information they had, the resources available to them, and the situation at hand. Which means every time there's a failure, it's not about blame. It's not about finding someone to blame. It's about understanding what was going on in our system that allowed this to happen. And one of my favorite stories about that is the Etsy's three armed sweater award, where they had, it was either a brand new employee or an intern. Now you can look it up, the exact things on the web, but what happened was this person was left to do a task, left on their own to do the task, and they were new to the system. They didn't have a lot of institutional knowledge, and they made a change in the system that took down their whole site. It was like one change. They were trying to fix something else. It was a disastrous error, right? And the CEO of Etsy instituted what they called the Three Armed Sweater Award and gave it to this employee and said, you showed us a vulnerability in our system that we did not know was here. Of course, we have to get busy and get this fixed, but this was a valuable experience for us. And so thank you for making this error because you showed us what we need to pay attention to. Right? So in failure is always the opportunity to understand the system better, even if it's a failure in a relationship between two people. What is it in our system that sets things up so that people are at loggerheads this way? Right? The things that can't be resolved, not just normal constructive conflict where we're trying to figure out new ideas, but real ongoing things. It doesn't matter how big or small the failure is. Systems drive behavior, right? And so there's something in the way our processes, our philosophy, our procedures, our policies that has created this situation, and that's the thing we need to focus on. And that's where the true learning is. So I think I'm going to need to go. So it's been delightful to be here with all of you. I really appreciate taking the time in your precious evening time to come and spend time with me. And I hope to see you all sometime in the future, either virtually or maybe someday in person again. So bye-bye.
Right. Thanks a lot, Diana, for this wonderful
Bye.
session.
Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much, Diana.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Yeah.
It was really great.
Bye bye, guys. Thanks,
Bye.
Diana. Thank you very much.